Hey guys, and welcome back to the randomized K-On! Pokemon Team series. Time to see Nodoka's Kalos team. Nodoka's first Pokemon will be Tyranitar, starting off with a pseudo-legendary, and one of only two non-dragon pseudos. Tyranitar is great even without its Mega. It's pretty slow, but everything else is damn good, especially physical attack. This thing will hit like a freight train. For abilities, Sandstream is easily the better of the two. While non-environmental sandstorms are only temporary post-Gen 4, the special defense buff for rock types does kinda make up for it. For level up moves, having natural access to the elemental fangs is always amazing, and it does get some other great moves. Crunch, Earthquake, Rock Slide, Stone Edge, there's some nice coverage here. For TMs, it has a wide variety to choose from. Even though you'd want to prioritize the physical attacks, 95 special attack is nothing to scoff at. It would get some use from the special attacks. So this is an amazing start to Nodoka's team. I imagine she'd be fairly intimidated seeing a Tyranitar in person, but she wouldn't run and hide like Mio. Nodoka's second Pokemon will be Probopass. Okay, that's pretty good. Probopass is more of a wall than an attacker, but teams do need some defense. While it does have very high defenses and a decent dual typing, the low HP makes me wonder just how bulky it really is. For abilities, Magnet Pull does require a Steel type to be out, and Sandforce requires a Sandstorm to be active, but they're all useful. For level up moves, it is funny how the Nosepass line can learn electric attacks, but given their Compass inspiration, it would make sense. And it does get some good stab attacks. For TMs, it's pretty limited type-wise, but Bulldoze and Dazzling Gleam give good coverage, so not a bad catch for Nodoka. It's a decent wall, and if nothing else, she could probably use it for anything requiring navigation. Nodoka's third Pokemon will be Zygarde. Damn Nodoka, a pseudo and a legendary. Zygarde's an interesting Pokemon in that it has 3 different forms depending on how many cells the core has. As such, it has variable stats. The 10% form is kinda underpowered and quite a bit weaker than fully evolved starters. The 50% form, which is said to be its standard form, is much stronger with the pseudo base total of 600. Special attack is the lowest, but 81 is still usable. Its complete form is the most powerful, but it only uses it when the ecosystem is under threat, so it's a guardian in a way. I'm not at all sure if it can switch between the 10% and 50% forms at will if it has every cell. Like, if it's at rest, does it go down to the 10% form? For abilities, it has 2 signature abilities. Aura Break is meant to counter Xerneas and Yveltal's abilities, and debuffs Dark and Fairy attacks for all active Pokemon. Power Construct unlocks its complete form if it drops below half HP, and it also restores its HP. I think Power Construct is better since it can use it against anything instead of just 2 specific legendaries. For level up moves, it's pretty good. Dark, Ground, and Dragon is good coverage, though unless you grind, you're probably not getting Dragon Pulse or Dragon Dance before the endgame. For TMs, it doesn't open up too much. It's actually a very small list for a legendary, but there's some stuff you can use. So a very impressive catch for Nodoka. This makes 2 very powerful team members for her. Nodoka's fourth Pokemon will be Gardevoir. That's not bad. Gardevoir is sort of the Hoenn Alakazam, but slower, though it did gain the Fairy type in Gen 6, which I'm certain helped it out. It mostly specializes in special stats, hitting hard with special attacks and taking them relatively well. For abilities, I'm not entirely sure how helpful Trace would be unless you somehow knew the opponent's ability. Telepathy, though, seems super helpful as you can run attacks like Surf and Earthquake without worry. For level up moves, it's still quite limited, even with the Type Edition. but if you could get Moonblast, that would be an amazing help, and Magical Leaf gives a little coverage. For TMs, it opens up a tiny bit, but as with a lot of Psychic types, there's not a huge amount of coverage. So, not bad. I do think Alakazam still outclasses Gardevoir in a lot of ways, but you can absolutely make it work. Nodoka's 5th Pokemon will be Avalugg. This one I don't know too much about. Ice is a great offensive type, but a terrible defensive type, so Pokemon like Avalugg are kinda hindered by it, and after Fairy was introduced, you wouldn't really need Ice to counter Dragon. It has terrific physical stats to take advantage of physical ice attacks, but they seem to have leaned a bit too far into that as its other stats are atrocious. For abilities, Ice Body is helpful because free healing, but you need Hail to use it, either environmentally or with a Weather Setter. Own Tempo is great to pair with self-inflicting confusion attacks like Thrash or Petal Dance, and Sturdy helps your Pokemon survive more. For level up moves, it's pretty typical for a pure Ice type. Bite and Crunch give coverage, and Curse isn't exactly detrimental since Avalugg is slow anyway. For TMs, it's still pretty limited. Ground and Rock attacks can counter the Fire and Steel weaknesses, but it's a bit strange it gets no Water attacks. That's kind of the norm for Ice types. So, pretty decent overall. It hits hard, it's physically bulky, and if anything, it got an alternate form in Legends Arceus. Arceus. And Nodoka's last Pokemon will be Mega Aggron. Hey, finishing with a Mega, the brand new Gen 6 mechanic that was criminally underused. Mega Aggron takes normal Aggron and makes it better in some ways. Pure Steel type, so no more 4x fighting or ground weaknesses. Physical defense is astronomical, and physical attack is very good, much like Avalugg, except its typing is better. For abilities, there's only the one, but it's very helpful for helping with its weaknesses. For level up moves, it's just Aggrons. Becoming Mega does not add moves, but the increased stats will make them hit harder. For TMs, it's the same story. A lot of special attacks, but since Aggron is not a special attacker, best to avoid them. So a hell of a way to end the team. This makes the second Mega for the Carlos section. Who will end up with another one? And that's it for Nodoka's Gen 6 team. I quite like this team. A Pseudo, a Legendary, and a Mega. I could see Nodoka doing really well with this lot. As always, please rate, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on X, consider backing me on Patreon, and remember to stay chilled.